and welcome to our first episode of Eyes on Germany, a video testimonial series about Germany's Council presidency. The presidency started on the 1st of July and lasts until the end of 2020. My name is Jeanette Süß. I'm European Affairs Manager at Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, a liberal and pro-European political foundation based here in Brussels. With Eyes on Germany, we want to shed light on how other local, national and European actors see Germany's Council presidency and what their expectations are. One of the hot topics discussed at the moment is migration policy. This is why I'm very glad to speak to Jan-Christoph Oetjen today, who is member of the European Parliament we are standing in front of, and who is also part of FDP Germany, and especially first and foremost a migration expert. The European Commission just released on the 23rd of September its long-awaited European Pact for Migration and Asylum. Germany has also made this pact one of its council priorities. How do you see Germany's role when it comes to the negotiations of the European Pact for Migration and Asylum?
Well, Germany has a very important role because in 2015 and 16 there were many migrants that arrived in Germany, and other countries are looking at us. They are looking at us and saying, wow, they're doing a good job. And others are saying they open the doors of Europe for the migrants. So Germany's role is particular. And the role of the German presidency is to find solutions, to find compromises within the Council and with the other member states. But I think it's very ambitious to have the idea to find a solution until the end of the year. Now we have a proposal on the table, but it will take time to discuss this, to find a position for the Parliament, and then to discuss with the Council to find a compromise at the end.
So you already mentioned the negotiations will be difficult. So in terms of strategy, what will be the best strategy for Germany? Is it better to talk about the more controversial issues first, or rather stick to the low-hanging fruits?
From my point of view, everything is linked. So there are low-hanging fruits like return policies, which are not working well at the moment and which have to be better. And there are difficult topics like the solidarity mechanism. If the solidarity mechanism, like it is proposed now by the Commission, with on the one hand relocation of migrants and on the other hand sponsoring of returns, if this is in place, return policies will do better as well. So it is linked, and from my point of view, it's a package. If we want a compromise, we have to see what do the countries like Hungary want, because we need them. And on the other hand, what do countries like France or Portugal want, who are more open to migrants? So in order to find a compromise, I think we have to discuss all of the topics at the same time and find a compromise for the whole package. At the end, it has to be clear that solidarity is not voluntary for the member states of the European Union. They have to contribute. And I'm not happy with the proposal of a return sponsorship. But if this is a way to have countries like Hungary and Poland to accept the pact, we should go this way because returns are part of the migration process, are part of the asylum process. But that's not the core of the pact. The core of the pact is that we need to have European solidarity.
How do you think could this work out with the return sponsorship? I mean, how can the European Union force those countries to return people at the end?
Yeah, that's the big issue, the elephant in the room, and we have to look very deep and very close into this. So the proposal is that there are countries who help Greece, for example, to return asylum applicants where the asylum plea has rejected, and to finance this and to help in a logistical way. But we have to see how this works in reality, because on paper written, it's fine. But if it will work, we don't know yet. So we have to look deep into this and see how we can manage.
Do you think that the idea of common European border procedures proposed by the Commission correspond to that idea?
It's a good idea to do a border procedure because we know that there are lots of people coming to Europe that have no right of asylum, where the asylum application will be denied. And we need swifter procedure, swifter treatment of the demands of asylum seekers in order not to have Morias, not to have big camps on the European borders. So this is a good proposal, but at the end it depends on how the member states are doing.
Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted to ask. How do we ensure that these procedures will become more swiftly?
We as Europe, we cannot, because it's member states' competence. The member states have to organize the asylum procedures, and they have to hire people who are doing the processes. If they don't, the procedures won't be swifter, won't be better, and so at the end we stay with the same problem. So Commissioner Johansson proposed a pilot project with Greece, where European people are going to Greece from EASO, helping the Greek authorities to manage the asylum procedures. This is a good proposal, and from my point of view, at the end, if we look at in a couple of years, it can only be better if we have more European competence in this issue.
Talking about competence, another aspect that has rather been neglected by the proposal is legal migration. For example, for migrants who want to take up work or also studies in Europe.
Well, labor migration is national competence as well. From my point of view, it is important that we see the topic of labor migration at the same time as the illegal arrivals, because we know that many people want to come to Europe to work, to have a better life, and this is normal. My ancestors did the same while going to the US in the 19th century. Last week, Commissioner Johansson said that they want to discuss labor migration as well in a second step. From my point of view, this has to be the same step, this has to be the same discussion, because if we don't manage labor migration to Europe, the people will continue to go into boats and try to cross the Mediterranean Sea, and we will have the same problems as we had the last years.
Another new element within the new Migration Pact is the idea of pre-entry screenings within 5 days at the EU border. This includes identification, health checks and security checks, fingerprinting and registration within the Eurodac database. However, border finally means Greece or Italy. So how will this process differ then from the current situation that we are facing in terms of responsibility sharing?
That's a good question. And I think the member states could do this already today. I mean, they could do a screening process within 5 days, as we did in 2015-16 in Germany, by the way. When people arrived in Germany, we took fingerprints and did all the stuff the screening procedure now foresees. So they could do so, but if we have let's say, a common guidance on this, if we have European authorities to help manage this screening process, I think this could work better. But at the end, all these timely delays of 5 days for the screening, 12 weeks for the border procedure, all this can only be put in place if the authorities, the national authorities of the member states, have enough people who do the process.
Mm-hmm. Except for the national authorities that have to show responsibility, it's also about the cooperation with home countries and third countries. So Commissioner Johansson stressed this external aspect of migration cooperation, and she stressed the role of readmission agreements in particular. But in reality, we do know that many of these readmission agreements do not work out in practice. The problem is that home countries are not necessarily willing to take back their citizens. So how can we convince them to finally cooperate more widely?
Same problem of theory on the one hand and the practical reality on the other hand. We already have agreements with 20 or 25 countries, but they don't work well. We need, from my point of view, more incentives. This can be money, this can be visa procedures or something else, but we need, on the other hand, a financial leverage as well, concerning perhaps the cooperation on the development level, on economical issues. So we have to look very deep into it and see those countries as real partners, because they should have an interest as well of finding a solution for readmission. But sometimes they don't want these people, and in that case, we need other measures.
What's your take on the European Pact for Migration and Asylum? Together with other MEPs, in January 2020, you released a vision paper on European migration policy. Do you feel that your proposals have been taken up by the current propositions of the Commission?
Well, on the one hand, yes, because border procedures, swifter procedures are inside the pact and are part of the proposal. On the other hand, labor migration is not. And this is a big problem, because if we don't manage labor migration at the same time, we will have the same problems in the future that we had in the past. So this has to be better, and I'm waiting for proposals of the Commission on this issue. But the proposal now is a good base to discuss on. It's a good base to find compromises. If everybody leaves his maximum positions on the left and on the right, and we center on what has to be better in a common asylum procedure, I'm sure that we are able to find a compromise. Because one thing is sure, we cannot go on with the status quo. We have to change something.
So thank you, Jan-Christoph, for having given us your insights, suggestions, and also critical remarks on how do you see the European Pact for Migration and Asylum, and how these issues have been discussed within Renew Europe and the European Parliament. I think to sum up, we can agree that these issues are just a starting point for further discussions, and that the real negotiations will begin now between the different institutions, especially the Council and the European Parliament. So follow us on our journey with Eyes on Germany, where we discover Germany's Council presidency within the next episodes on Twitter and on YouTube. Stay tuned.